Hello, everybody. We're going to get started with this talk. This is Cracking the Code, How to Ethically Hack the Human Mind with Scott Holman. Basically, he's going to be our soft skills speaker for the evening. He's going to teach you how to get buy-in from everybody you need to in your organization for security.
Excellent. Get the ovation early, that way I can't mess it up. Hey, this morning I read that from the CEO of LinkedIn that the greatest skills gap in America now has to do with soft skills. Has nothing to do with the hard skills anymore, has nothing to do with coding, has nothing to do with IT. All these areas that once upon a time were where everyone needed to exist, it's moved. Now we have corporations across America that have no clue, or have individuals inside that have very little clue how to deal with other individuals in order to ultimately get what needs to be done in the organization complete. We're growing up in a world, and I'll stay off this soapbox, but we're growing up in a world where, quite frankly, many of us are being raised in homes where we don't necessarily get to see what a real relationship looks like. We're growing up in family environments that are not always the best case scenario. And so what we have is a group set of people that are moving into the business and corporate life, and we just don't know how to deal with relationship, whether good, bad, conflict, whatever the case may be. So that's the purpose of today, is just to talk about some of the soft skills and how to connect with people, how to relate to people, and ultimately how to persuade people. Last year, I don't remember her name, but there was a speaker. She was the very first speaker here, and she got up and did a talk about how important it is for each and every one of us to get the buy-in of our executives so that we can accomplish the goals that we believe we need to accomplish. As I looked around and looking at my background, I realized many of us in this room are technology people, not necessarily people. And how many in here would raise your hand and admit, I know that I need to get executive buy-in in order to accomplish the goals I want to accomplish within my organization? Now, how many would keep your hands up and say that's an easy task? It's not. It's not at all, because now I got to get their attention, and I have to persuade them that what I think is important should be important to them, and I have to continue that relationship with them so that we can ultimately accomplish those goals over time. And that is the whole point of this talk today, is just to show a few insights on how that can be done, or maybe just one aspect that you can apply to how you're handling your job, your career, and maybe you can just use that as a tool so you can accomplish your goals that you have. I need to get this little thing here. A little bit about me, and I will be brief. Ironically, Valerie over there, when she was talking about access control, that's what I do, everybody. My background is 20 plus years in the physical security space. I actually have spent 20 years as a systems integrator, an account manager working with large corporations on applying the systems needed to protect the building. I've been doing access control, I've been doing video surveillance, alarm systems, intercom systems, all of that for, again, 20 plus years. I came to ShowMeCon 3 years ago because I realized something. Do not tell my bosses I said this. I realized that the same exact devices that we're putting in place to protect a facility and the assets of a corporation, in many cases are one of the largest vulnerabilities for the cyber professional. It is one of the entry doors to someone who may actually want to hack a facility if that system was not put in correctly, if it was not locked down correctly. And of course, that's what we just heard a few hours ago. That's what brings me here. I'm an account manager, a relationship manager, educator, coach, and part of the John Maxwell team. And so I speak on leadership, persuasion, connection, things of that nature. Now, today we're going to talk about the power of connection and applying some of these principles to your life. There's a book out there called Big Potential by Sean Acor. And the very first chapter talks about a biologist, Hugh Smith, who is in the mangrove forest of Southeast Asia. And when he was in there on this river, it was late at night, very dark, couldn't see a thing, and then out of nowhere, a tree flashed. And he described it as if lightning shot out from the tree. Not lightning hitting the tree, but rather like lightning flashing out of the tree. Of course, that drew his attention into the forest, and he said within seconds, the tree flashed again. And then other trees started to flash until ultimately the whole riverside was one big flash. Anybody got an idea what the flash might have been? Fireflies. And this led him down an avenue of learning about fireflies, or this particular species of firefly. And what he learned is these fireflies synchronize with each other. These fireflies will look basically at the firefly next to them, and they will begin to match their light, and it'll flash at the same time. And of course, I guess thousands, millions, I don't know the actual number, over time, looking at the next one, you start getting these large bursts of light. Now, ironically, in their study, what he learned was this, is that the reason these males flash their light, of course, is basically they're trying to find the female, or allowing the female to find them. And what they learned is that a firefly that flashes its light randomly has a 3% chance of success in a female finding him. That's pretty low odds. I feel sorry for those guys. Those that synchronize their flash, their odds of success increase up to 82%. It's pretty astounding. Pretty astounding that one would believe that by flashing in a group, which could be considered competition, is ultimately better than trying to do your own thing. And I think what we can learn by that is we need people. We need the cooperation of people. And we live in a society here, really in America, that we focus on... Can everyone see me okay, right, if I come down? We live in a society in America that we focus on the whole idea that it's about me. I want to be the best. I want to be the one in charge. But what we see through Firefly's teaching us, and really all the statistics, by working together in the power of cooperation and flashing together, we will ultimately have greater success in life. We will not only shine brighter in ourselves, but our entire teams will shine brighter if we get better at working together. Now, I know we're technology people, so maybe you're saying, I don't really care about fireflies. So let's put it in a different way. Can anyone tell me what this is? It's a diagram of what? I got IT professionals. Come on, someone help me. It's a network. What kind of network? It's peer-to-peer. At least that's what the pictures tell me. I'm not a network guy, okay? I'm going to openly admit. I'm one of those who's been in physical security. I know just enough to be dangerous, but I don't know your language. But I've always heard of networks, and I know the principle of a peer-to-peer network. And a peer-to-peer network is based on computer nodes, in essence, working together. So in this scenario, there is no master server that has all the information that's feeding each and every computer. Each computer gets its knowledge and information from the other computers that it is ultimately connected with. To simplify, and again, this is just to try to, don't judge my technology knowledge here. This is just to simplify the concept. To simplify this, in essence, if one computer has some knowledge, and it connects to another college that has, or another computer with a different set of knowledge, both computers ultimately get smarter. Is that correct? You can go with that logic? And if I can continue to connect to other nodes, the more and more I connect to, the more diverse the information, the more diverse the knowledge. In theory, I get smarter and smarter the more I connect with other computers. Can everyone go with that? I want to show another peer-to-peer network. This one is with human beings. You're my peer. You're my peer. How many's heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none? How many like being a jack of all trade? Anyone in here openly admit I'm a jack of all trade, master of none? All right, don't get mad at me. I would kind of consider myself this, but I'm a recovering one. I'm one that likes to try to do everything myself because I'm actually kind of cheap. All right, I don't like to pay people for stuff. I can figure it out. In fact, I had a guy at Home Depot tell me the other day, he's like, you know what, I quit hiring people to do this stuff. I can do just as bad a job as they do, and I can do it myself. And I thought that was kind of funny, and I feel the same way, but what I've actually come to realize is I only have so much mental power. I only have so much time. And so for me to ultimately become better, I can't learn it all. I can't be a jack of all trades, master of none. In fact, I really need to be a master of some and forget the other stuff. And what I need to do is I need to connect, what's your name? Bob. I need to connect to Bob, who's a master at some other stuff. Maybe his personality is different than mine. Maybe I'm not good with details. Maybe Bob's good with details. I need to connect with Bob. And then Bob helps me. And I get better, and Bob gets better because we have different skill sets, and we've learned to work together. And I can go on through the room. Everybody get it? And that's exactly how we must find ourselves within the organizations and really life in general. If we work together and become masters at some, or masters even at one, we're ultimately going to shine brighter. So, here's what I hope to do. I hope to show you how each and every one of us can add people or nodes into our network, our own personal network. Because with each person we add, ultimately, we shine brighter. How many would like a raise this year? How many would like a promotion? How many would like just to be known for something more? You can figure out what you want, how you want to define success. Success is truly defined within each individual. I strongly believe that. But what you will find is your success is only going to be achieved by the power of your own personal peer-to-peer network. And so this intimidates some. Are there any in here that would openly admit that you are not natural when it comes to dealing with people? It's kind of awkward for me. I really don't like it. Maybe we'll take it a step further. Maybe you feel comfortable with your friends and family, but when it comes to meeting someone new, how many just love that? I mean, it's good. It's great. How many, seriously, today you have sat by someone you did not know and you've had a genuine conversation with them and got to know them? In the back, I see one hand. She literally pulled me out earlier downstairs and started talking to me. I was really proud of you, by the way, and that was fantastic. My goal today is actually to let you know it's really not that hard. We tend to look at life and relationships as being something that's natural for people. And I actually argue that it's not natural. I argue that those who appear to be natural when it comes to connection and relationship, it's really not natural. It's that they were brought up in an environment that allows them to feel like it was natural. Which really leads me to my theory that all relationship is not necessarily natural, but it is a science. A science that can be learned. Just like any of the other technology that we learn about, it is a science that has hard principles because our mind, as complex as it is, all the research shows that certain inputs always equal certain outputs. Why do you think marketing, if you watch commercials on TV or anything of that nature, guys, it is set with a principle. It has hard data tied to it because it knows that by presenting this information in this way, human brain will react in this way. So my goal again, just learn today. I want you to pull yourself back and say, hey, if this in fact is a science, then maybe I can learn a little bit, take out one detail today and get a little better at this. Now, I love this one. Wreck-It Ralph. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Why is this up here? Because what I just said actually scares some people. If hacking the human mind, as I called it there, is in fact a possibility and a science that can be learned or an art that can be learned, if you want to look at it that way, that scares a lot of people. Because if I know that I can do certain things and get a certain response from Bob, isn't that manipulation? And so that begins to scare human beings, and they say, well, wait a minute, I don't know how I feel about that. But I want to challenge each and every one of you in this room. What kind of conference is this? Somebody yell it out. It's a hackers conference. In fact, 3 years ago, I walked away with the term an ethical hackers conference. Ethical hacker. All right? Just because you know how to hack, does that mean you do bad things? Not at all. Just because I know how to interact with human beings and I know the science behind it, does that mean I manipulate? Not at all. It comes down to your intention. So I really just want to put this out, put that fear aside. It's okay to learn the science and it's okay to use it. The St. Louis Blues, anyone here, they won the Stanley Cup? You guys heard that? Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Those guys won the Stanley Cup because they practiced their art. They practiced their trade and they got better. And it's no different in this arena. If you want to be good at the people trade, you have to practice your art and just know how it works. How many know what the pretext is? Why in the world would I bring pretext into this conversation? Pretext, I love the definition. It's a half-lie. It's a half-lie to present yourself as something that you may not fully be, but you want people to believe that you are. Often used in social engineering. Often used in a phishing attack. Basically, you're trying to get someone to believe that you are someone that you are not. Now, I know this is a little dangerous, but I want you to follow me for a moment. Relationship, getting good at this, all starts with the pretext. When I was 14, I was one of the shyest kids around. I can go back into my grade school age and I can tell you when I got glasses and how getting the glasses, I started getting made fun of for glasses, and then my parents didn't have much money and the glasses I did have, I think my parents were just trying to keep me ugly, quite frankly. They gave me weird haircuts. I just did not have confidence. I was shy. I was all kinds of things. At around the age of 14, I got contacts, so that made me feel a little better. And I was going to this camp. It was a church camp for a week. And my brother, he had just read something about the fact that if you can convince your mind that you're not shy and you can just overcome that shyness, then all of a sudden your body will believe it and other people will start to believe it too. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I don't know if I really believe it, but I tried it. So what I did is I basically created a pretext for myself. I created this new pretext for my brain that, you know what? I am pretty cool. I am handsome. People like me. Thinking back to Saturday Night Live from years ago. And you know what's funny? I got to camp, and I shook hands with someone. I really got brave, and I even went up to some girls and talked to girls, and I never talked to girls. And at the end of the week, they presented an award at this. They stopped that last year. I think people got offended. But they used to have an award at the end of that where it's basically the most popular award. They had for the senior high students, there was Camp King, and then there was Camp Queen and Camp Prince. And really all it was the most popular award. It was all by vote. And guess who got Camp Prince that year? Yeah! It's a great memory. But you know what it taught me? It's all up here. The pretext is all up here. It's about us being able to convince ourselves that maybe we're not the person we think we are. Maybe we can be different. And then we have to determine who that is. So maybe if you want to connect with the executive, there's an executive you need to connect with to start getting the buy-in you need for your objectives to be met. You need to sit there and say, what is he looking for in an individual? And if you're not that person, I want you to try to mentally take on the role of the person you think you need to be. And get past your own limiting beliefs and try it out. Now, I'm not saying be fake. I'm saying lie to yourself slightly, get a pretext so your mind and body begin to believe what you're telling it, and ultimately what you will find is you'll kind of become that person that you feel like you need to be in the first place. That's why I have the little mask up here. If you remember the movie, and I don't even remember a whole lot of details of the movie, all I remember is that mask would come on him, it would grip his face, and he would become a different person. Now, probably again around the same age of the Camp Prince, I was very involved in our church, still involved in church, but at that time we had a puppet and a clown ministry, and they needed a clown, and so I decided I would be a clown. And so I took on the learning and education of a clown. And I learned how to get a costume and learned how to do the makeup. And I learned how to come up with a character, in essence, and become that person. And what I learned over time was really unique. And my wife, when she met me, absolutely hated it. When I go through the process of basically putting on that clown, putting on that makeup, putting on that outfit, you know what's interesting? I find it very difficult to talk to you in a normal voice. It's almost like the new character can take over. And I know this sounds weird, and you're like, oh, dude, what's this guy talking about? I promise you, if you trust me in this one fact, you can convince your mind to be a little different than what you think you are right now. If you're struggling with confidence, just try to be bold and say, you know what, I'm not that person. I'm not shy. I belong. If you need to dress differently in order to feel that way, dress differently. If you need to do something different with your hair or makeup, do something different. But become that person, and you will find that you can change, and that may just be what you need to do in order to have that initial connection, because now you believe that you can. So let's talk about how to actually connect. This whole purpose now is to, if you remember the people all around, is talking about how we can add people to our nodes. All right? We want to add people to this network. And if you can remember this principle, you'll be in good shape. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. That's what you're going to hear most often. I actually add and respect, because I believe know has two different ways of looking at it. I can know you in the sense that Bob and I know each other right now. Maybe we could have a short conversation. We kind of know each other, and that may be helpful. But to really know each other takes a little bit of time. And I'm going to tell you that no one really cares to know someone too deeply if they don't respect you. So we need to know, like, trust, and respect. And so in order to get support from people, we need to be able to present that to others. And I have to be able to convince you that you want to know me, you want to like me, you want to trust me, and you want to respect me. Here's the scary part, everyone. This happens within 7 seconds of your first meeting. First impressions are set within 7... Hey, that slide disappeared. First impressions are set within 7 seconds. In 7 seconds, you make a decision when you meet someone of how smart they are. You typically make a decision if you like them, if they look trustworthy, and if you actually want to have a conversation with them. And in 7 seconds, that quick, you've already made a decision if you're going to connect or not. That's crazy, don't you think? But you sit there and say, well, if that's true, and all the research shows that it is true, and if you think about it, I mean, really look through today and go back and say, I spotted this person, and ask yourself what you thought about that person. Just snap judgments. And you will realize you made those snap judgments in seconds, and it has dictated how you have responded in kind to that person today. So what we need to do is be able to mind that first impression. We need to be able to say, how can I ensure that in those 7 seconds, I am putting off the impression that you want to know me, you want to like me, you want to trust me, and you want to respect me. Guys, this is basic stuff. Every one of us have heard it, but I'm telling you, if you can apply this, you will at least get to second base. Can you please smile every now and then? Seriously. We go around life and we sit there with this grimace on and life's horrible. And nobody likes people who are boring. No one likes people who don't have fun. We like people who seem happy. The worst thing you can do is say, hey, how are you? And then hear all of life's draining stories. You're like, sorry I asked, right? No, let's be real. You want to see the happy side. Hey, how are things? Man, the Blues won last night. It was fantastic. And maybe you're looking at me saying, this guy's off his rocker. But the reality is, that comes off as likable because I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I passed that test. The second one is eye contact. A lot of us miss this, and a lot of this has to do with our own personal confidence. So going back to our pretext, am I confident enough to look at you straight in the eye when I come to shake your hand? Because when I do that, anyone ever looked at someone in the eye and almost felt something in your heart? You're like, dude, we just connected. Anyone? Okay, at least I'm not the only weird one. There is something about that eye contact that all of a sudden says, man, I'm legit. And when I do that, we become familiar with one another, creating the likability standpoint. Firm handshake. You know what that symbolizes? I'm not hiding anything. You can trust me. I'm confident, and you can trust me. And then finally, our body language and dress really does matter. This is something that we don't always like because we live in an age where we tell everybody that they can be anything they want to be. You can dress any way you want. You can act any way you want. You can look any way you want. And by golly, the world just has to deal with you. And that is fantastic in theory, but I'm going to tell you something. Every one of us make judgments all the time. And the reality is, again, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to say, I make judgments based on the way people look. I'll share an example with you. If you wear a suit and tie, typically, I will automatically assume that you are an executive or a high-powered position within an organization. What basis do I have to put that on? Anyone else join me on that one? Why? There's no basis on it. Because they presented themselves in that manner. Now, if I'm a president of a company and I'm going around in sweatpants, that's great. That's my prerogative. But how many are going to say, man, that's the president of so-and-so if you don't know them? You're not. So really, the way we present ourselves also matters. If you want to get respect of executives, and guess what? They dress up in suit and ties at your organization. You want to know how to do it? Dress up a little bit. If you want to get respect of, you name your group, you kind of have to dress to who you are trying to connect with. Because it matters to who you are. Your body language is important. Again, I can come in and I can be slumped over and you guys are going to be like, who's this? Or I can stand up straight and firm and you're going to make judgments on my confidence level. You're going to make judgments on how happy I am today or how much I believe my own information. All of this based on the body language. Now, every one of you in this room have heard this stuff millions of times. But what I encourage you to do is take one of those and try to apply it and see if it works for you. Get past the first 7 seconds. The next thing, when it comes to connection, guess what? We like people that we are. We like people we're like. Guys, this is so important. A year ago, I went on a cruise with my wife, and we were celebrating an anniversary. And I remember that I was sitting at a food court, and I was waiting in this long line, and ended up looking at the person next to me and said, hey, how are you? And they just answered something. Where are you from? I'm from Missouri. You're from Missouri? And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, we connected. I know someone from Missouri. A simple fact of knowing someone from the same state, and all of a sudden I decided I liked them. It's ridiculous, but it's true. I was telling that story to someone the other day, and they laughed. They said, I did the same exact thing. He said, but I took it further. You actually just kind of left that conversation, went on, did your own thing. I ended up hanging with guys that I would never hang with in my entire life. I spent nights with them at the bars. I did things that I never would have done because they were from the same state as me, and I liked them. It's a likability factor. Now, maybe that's hard to get. Maybe same state's not enough. But the key I'm trying to tell you is the way we can connect with someone in likability is find out what we share in common. How can I find out what we share in common? Any guesses for me? Who said that? Ask questions. Everybody quit talking about yourself. If you really want to connect with people, shut up. Stop talking about yourself and ask questions. What do you like? Where'd you get that blues hat? Your daughter. Excellent. How many kids do you have? 3 kids? Oh, man, what ages?
20, 23, and 22.
Oh, man, you're dealing with that college life stuff, aren't you? Oh, all out. Where I'm trying to go with this is if I keep asking questions, we're going to hit on something that brings us some similarities. I didn't want to just stick on blues fan. That was too easy. But I can follow this until we hit a thread of commonality. And once we hit that thread, then I can just keep asking questions and following this thread. And by the time that 5-minute conversation is done, I will almost assure you, what's your name? Dan and Scott will be friends because we share common points and we like people who are like us.
I've been nodding every like that was wrong today. Just like we're family.
Just because, right? Anyone going to the parade on Saturday? I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to be crazy enough to do it. You know what? I bet you everybody down there is best friends on Saturday. Why? Because we root for the same team. It's silly, but it's true. We like people who are like us. All right, so we move past this first base. These guys like me. I'm good. All right, I've got this executive. We have some common points. Now I need to actually get him to start buying into what I'm trying to do. I need to get him to ultimately want to move forward with what I think we need to move forward so our organization can really be better. John Maxwell has this quote, leaders have two characteristics. First, they're going somewhere, and second, they are able to persuade other people to go with them. It's all about persuasion. Now, I told you I'm an account manager. Simple terms, I'm a sales guy. And a lot of times I'll tell people, you know, I'm a sales guy, and you know what I'll hear often? Oh, I could never do that. No way, I could never be in sales. And I always answer, why? And I know the answer why. It's because they don't want to be the used car sales guy. And why do we always think of the used car sales guy? Are they really that bad? I buy a lot of used cars. And I've never run into a guy who's really slick and slimy. At least at the car sales lot. But we have this picture of what a salesperson is, and for some reason, we don't trust them. But you have to get rid of this. Because each and every one of us, we're in sales. I don't care if you're trying to sell your boss on a raise. I don't care if you're trying to sell an executive on a program. I don't care if you're trying to sell your wife on a date. I don't care what you're trying to do. We are all in sales, and we are all persuading. The key to this successful persuasion is representing something you believe in. And that's the only way that you will survive this picture here. I love it. Everybody able to see the king right there? And the king's going to battle with his amazing sword because that's what he knows. And you have the salesman back here who's got the machine gun. He'll do a lot better in this battle. But what's the king say? The words somehow fell out of that. I'm too busy. Tell him I'm too busy. But the sales guy, guess what he had? A better solution. A better plan. How many believe this firmly? If you have a better solution, you really should stand up and let someone know about it. Would you guys agree with that? Well, that's persuasion. That's sales. What's wrong with that? There's absolutely nothing wrong with persuading when you believe in something and it'll actually help someone out. We all persuade. Talked about this a moment ago. How many's ever pulled the, hey honey, let's go on a date to the golf course? Your wife doesn't even like golfing, but you try to present it. You tell this story of how we'll just bond together. We'll be closer emotionally, and it's going to just help our relationship. Right? You persuade in this. You got the kid up there with the driver's license. Hey, Dad, can I go drive in the car? Absolutely not, son. But, Dad, if I take the kids to their practice, you can stay home and do whatever you want. Here are the keys, son. Right? It's all in how you want to present the story. The little girl there. Dad, do you want to have a tea party? Absolutely not. Until your wife looks at you and says, honey, if you don't have tea with your daughter, when those other guys come calling around, who's she going to go to? I'd love to have tea. Right? It's all in how we present the story. And the key I really want to pull out is sales and persuasion is about sharing what? It's right there for you. Sharing stories. I want to tell you something. Even today, I've seen it over and over. And I'm not picking on anyone, but what I've seen is a lot of people telling a lot of facts. I've seen a lot of speakers presenting facts, and very few stories. And I've been watching and observing. And when a speaker does start to tell a story, guess what happens? Everybody sits up. All of a sudden, they're back engaged in that whole conversation. Because we love stories. Now, I don't know how many share faith with me, but I grew up in church, and I read the Bible, and everyone may know who Jesus is. And want me to tell you something about Jesus? I'm not getting religious. I'm just telling you the fact that He shared His message through stories. They call them parables, but He used stories. Stories are what will get your message across. So I always encourage everyone, if you really want to get the executives' buy-in on whatever you're doing, find a way to take that content that is really dry. I mean, how many executives know anything about cybersecurity? And you're sitting there and you're throwing all these facts at them, and you know what they're doing? They're looking at you with a blank stare saying, I'd like to help, but I don't even know what this guy's talking about. But what if you were able to take this story or these facts and package it in a story that they could relate to? Something that would help them, oh, that's what it means. And maybe it's a little far, stretched, but you're just trying to create something that they can relate to and understand. Share the story. And that is the key to the persuasion. It's very simple. Believe in what you represent and share a story. And then you'll start to get the buy-in. There's a few things that you need to know, and I'm going to have to go through quick. I see that clock over there. There are certain things. I talked about inputs equal outputs. And Dr. Robert Cialdini, he wrote a book called Influence and Persuasion, great books. And he talks about 7 different influence factors, and these, again, are scientific inputs that equal outputs. So I'm just going to talk to 3 of them, giving you some ideas of what you might be able to implement into your life. One is the principle of reciprocity. A simple example is this. I told you I'm cheap, right? I have a membership to Sam's Club. I got 4 kids too, guys. The largest budget line in my entire budget is food. And so I have to find ways to curb that. And so I go to Sam's Club. And I like to go to Sam's Club on Sunday afternoons because they tend to roll out all those sample carts. And if I hit enough sample carts and each one of the kids takes something, if it's a really good Sunday, I can end up at the store and I don't even have to go to lunch because the sample carts took care of everything. Now you would say, that's crazy. Why did they do that in the first place? Well, I'll tell you why they do that in the first place. Because when the person at the cart actually engages you, all of a sudden, you eat a little meatball, and she engages you and tells you all about the meatballs, and guess what you do before you even know it? Fine, and you throw a package of meatballs in your cart. You didn't want meatballs, but because she gave you something, you almost felt like you were obligated to give something in return. I see 3 ladies sitting here. I don't know if y'all work together, if you just became friends today, but if you bailed you out, she's going to turn to you and say, thanks, Guys, use it to your advantage. Serve. Anyone ever heard the concept of servant leadership? Serve others first. And when you serve someone first, I know you're saying, well, should I do it for that reason? Probably not. Serve because you want to. But guess what? When you do serve, that person is always going to remember that, and you are always going to have that favor sitting there when you need it. Just use it wisely. So if you got an executive you're trying to persuade, hey, find something you can do for them. Whether it's help them out on a project, whether it's just do some research for them, I don't know what it might be, but serve them, and before you know it, you got a favor sitting over there when you need them. The next one is commitment and consistency. What they've learned is when I make a commitment, then I have to follow through with my actions to show consistency to what I say. I'm going to give you a simple example. Boston Bruins, St. Louis fans. The Boston Bruins fans saying, my team's the greatest, they're going to destroy the Blues. The St. Louis Blues fan says, fine, let's bet $100. The Boston Bruins fan says what? He's kind of in a pickle. He can say no, and now he appears cheap, or he appears that he doesn't actually believe his team's better than the Blues in the first place. Or the most likely scenario is because he just said the Bruins are better than the Blues, it came out of his mouth and he verbally made a commitment. When I turn and say, how about a $100 bet, he almost has to accept that bet to be consistent with what just came out of his mouth. Turning this to business, some of the best things you can do is, again, in asking the questions, try to lead with some questions and get that executive friend that you've just made, that you're trying to get on your team, ask some questions about, what are your thoughts on cybersecurity? Are we at risk? And what would happen? What do you think would happen if so-and-so, and make up some other company, if they got hacked, what would this do to their business? Oh man, that would cost them millions. They'd probably be sued and they'd be out of business. Oh yeah, and you lead them. You see where I'm doing? And kind of lead them, and all of a sudden they make this commitment of cybersecurity is important. Now, I'm not saying you jump on them right then and there, but they remember they did that. So when you need to go back, you remember when you said that, they kind of have to follow through with some action to support what they had already said. Another one is authority and social proof. Why do you think they put celebrities in advertisements on TV. Simply social proof. It's no more than peer pressure. When an authority says something, we do it. I don't know who your hero is here in this building. Maybe you have some heroes, people you've been following. But a lot of times, if they were on stage and they get up here and you love them and you believe them and they said, you need to use this platform because this platform does X, Y, and Z, and they just really believe it, and you trust them and you believe in who they are and you really respect their knowledge, and you need a similar system, what system are you going to buy? Probably the same exact one he just told you should buy. It just comes down to social proof. Use it to your advantage. If you see an article come out and it supports what you're trying to accomplish, email it to the person. Now again, remember, don't email it to a stranger. You've already made friends with them, remember? You're emailing it to a friend and said, hey, I thought you would like this. I thought this would be useful for you. I want to just kind of help it along. After you've started persuading and you got these guys on your team, you've effectively put this human being in your node, I need you to remember something. It's important to keep this relationship for the long term. Do not let relationships go. This is where relationship management comes in. I'm going to tell you something. Ready? This might be one of the key components for any leader in here. The most expensive thing in life and business is losing a relationship in your node. Anyone in this room ever been divorced? Expensive? Yes. Anyone ever lost a good employee? Expensive? Anyone ever lost a good customer? Oh, you guys are good. I've lost customers before too. It's expensive. And the key point I'm really trying to make is we have to maintain these relationships. And we need to keep them for the long term. So how do we do it? Well, there's simple things. I'm going to some relationship books on you now. We need to mind the emotional bank account. How many know what a bank account is? We know that you can deposit money in the bank account, right? And you deposit money in the bank account so when you need it, you can pull it back out, correct? Emotional bank accounts are simply this. We go back to the servant thing. If I take care of the needs of a person I'm trying to build that relationship and keep a relationship with, if I make emotional deposits in that account, when I actually need something back, I will have already stored favors, I will have stored help, I will have stored all kinds of things there for me to pull out when I need it. The key factor is make sure you do a lot of deposits first before you ever try to pull any out. Say, how can I do that? Well, there's a book out there. It's a relationship book called The 5 Love Languages. And it's really geared toward marital relationships, quite frankly. But I believe it aligns with business too. Because each one of us, the theory of the book is each one of us have a primary love language that excites us. And when someone does this to us, we actually feel the emotion of love. Each one of us in this room may have a different one on there. And they are gifts, acts of kindness, quality time, words of affirmation, and touch. I'm going to go through each one in business. Gifts. Guys, this could be as simple as company swag. This could be as simple as knowing that someone likes the blues. And you were there buying a t-shirt and you just bought an extra t-shirt. I'm not talking about large gifts. I'm talking about just basic small stuff to say, hey, I know I thought of you. I care about you. Now, you only do this if you know they like gifts. You kind of got to get to know them. You'll be able to find what they like, but if it's someone you think likes when they get stuff, man, just always show up with something. I heard a story the other day of, oh my gosh, his name is the greatest investor of all time. Buffett. I heard a story the other day of Warren Buffett when someone actually went to visit him and they said, you get 10 minutes. And they measured this, 10 minutes. And they did a little research and realized he liked cherry Coke and they showed up with the cherry Coke. And you know what he said to them? You can have as much time as you want. No one ever brings me my favorite drink. The simple fact of bringing a favorite drink opened up 10 minutes into what ended up being an hour-and-a-half conversation. So gifts, a lot of times, will actually, if that's your love language, is going to open them up to you and continue to build that relationship. Acts of kindness. Again, this comes down to servanthood. This may just be helping someone when they need help. But these random acts of kindness, or maybe they're not so random, but these helps to each other, shows someone I care about you. And in turn, is filling that emotional bank account. Quality time, that is what it is. Maybe you just go to lunch with someone. Maybe you meet them for coffee every now and then. Maybe your families actually hang out. I don't know what that looks like, but what I'm saying is some people just like spending time with others, and if that's the person you're trying to build the relationship and maintain the relationship with, just spend some time with them and fill the emotional bank account. Words of affirmation. How many like being told you're a great person? I like it. If that's your person, tell them they're doing a good job. Just every now and then. Hey, man, that was a great work. Oh, man, whatever you did on that was fantastic. And you make them feel good, and you filled the emotional bank account. This one's a little more touchy, okay, the whole touch one. Because really in the business and work spot, we can't do the physical touch. That's a dangerous aspect to do. So what I mean by physical touch, or actually not even physical touch, what I mean by touch are the simple factors of just, again, I'm thinking of you. Maybe it's a quick text. Hey, I saw this. Thought you might like it. It's the simple, quick hits. In essence, they're little touches to say I was thinking of you. And in those touches, you are building your emotional. And as you build that emotional bank account, guess what? When you need their help, when you need their buy-in, you've got a friend that's now a part of your network. You've got someone who believes in what you're doing. And you have a bank account that's ready to say, hey, I need your help on this. Can you help me get in front of this person to make this happen? And all of a sudden, what for years has been a struggle, you all of a sudden have a friend who's helping you get exactly where you need to get. I'll finally just say this. There's nothing natural about this. It's about intentional planning. When I come into situations like today, guess what? I actually plan it. What are some questions I can ask people? What are some things I can do? And not how are you? That's the lamest question out there. How are you? I'm fine. No. Hey, where'd you get that hat? Hey, I like that your shoes there. Or, that's a great notebook. Find something interesting and just kind of plan out questions like that. And you'll find that your conversations will always be much better. And you won't feel so awkward in these scenarios. You'll feel much more prepared. And that's the end, guys. I'd love to connect with any one of you. If you ever want to connect, if you ever want input, if you ever just want to talk through other soft skills, there's a lot more to this. Feel free to reach out. I love helping. It's one of my favorite things to do. And other than that, thanks for coming. Are there time for questions, or did I use all that up? I got time? Anyone have a question that I'll see how well I do on the fly? Please say no, please. Oh! Oh, there is so much good stuff. But actually, one of my favorite books is by, and it's actually very scientific. It's almost verges on dry, but it's really good. And that is Robert Cialdini. I think it's Influence. I would highly recommend that book. It's a great one. What's that? It's like Cialdini, Chaldini, I believe. Great book. Yes, sir.
Great talk. I loved it. And honestly, I have 4 kids, and I would love if my 4 kids were all to listen to this. Do you have like a YouTube channel or something?
I'm working on building this, guys. Right now, my day job's with ADT Security. I deal with large corporate accounts. I have 4 kids also with a large budget item, and to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to stop clowning around, which is my side business, overnight's a really hard thing to do, but I am just building it up little by little. Yes, the YouTube channels are about ready to start up. I'm doing things on Instagram, and be willing to happily chat with the school. I'm working with some schools now, and just speaking in these different environments. I do have a heart for kids. I've spent a good part of my life as a children's pastor, and so I love youth and working with them as well. So absolutely. Just, again, pick any one of those and reach out, and be happy to chat with you more. And by the way, I got 4 kids too. It's a great thing. And then along the same line, I'm serious. I'm trying to build up something on the side too. Full disclosure, I will happily take anyone's, Instagram, great talk, anything like that to ever boost up, and I will happily take your referrals. And so, just throwing that out there. And again, I'll be here the entire conference. If you want to chat on any topic, let me know. All right.